Have you ever trusted someone so deeply, only to hear them laugh and say you had no right to a voice in your own relationship? Tonight's story begins with that exact betrayal, a girlfriend who said, "You don't get a say." But secrets have footprints and lies leave trails that can't stay hidden forever. This is not just about infidelity. It's about reclaiming dignity, setting boundaries, and exposing the truth when someone tries to silence you. And trust me, the twists ahead will leave you speechless. If you're new here, welcome to Cheating Stories 7, where real tales of betrayal and revenge come to life. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe because every story we share reminds us betrayal always comes with a price. Now, let's step into tonight's story. Caught cheating girlfriend said I had no say, so I took back everything. The sauce was just beginning to catch when Clara said it, that line with the sharp little hook in it. "Stop acting like we're married. You don't get a say." She said it casually, like flicking lint off a sweater. Leela let out a delighted bark, while Megan folded over her phone as if the text she was reading had just won an award. Harper stood with one hip against the counter and didn't laugh. She moved her eyes between us the way people do when they realize the joke is a bruise. I took the wooden spoon off the heat and turned the burner down. The kitchen smelled like garlic and a decision. Clara had already put herself in that glossy weekend mood, hair blown out, lip gloss blooming like a small fire. "Girls trip," she said, breezy as a brochure. "The lake, you know the one." She tapped her phone and a reservation code flashed on her lock screen, 4 letters and 3 numbers. I knew they did not belong to our sleepy cabin by the gray water, the one where you had to jiggle the heater to coax it awake. I had the old cabin code saved in a notes app from the first time we went. Clara's code was a stranger. "Sounds nice," I said, and I meant it the way a surgeon says you might feel pressure. Leela lifted a brow at me, the kind of expression that suggests a private audience with paid tickets. Megan swiped her camera across the room and I stepped out of frame. Harper set a glass on the counter quietly enough that it felt like a message. "Some noises are unnecessary." The front bell tinked. "Mrs." Whitmore's silhouette crossed the frosted pane, small and sturdy like handwriting that refuses to wobble with age. I opened the door to her roses and her half-smile. "Evening, dear." Your recycling lid blew off. She handed me the lid and then, as if commenting on cloud shapes, mentioned a late-model SUV that had taken to idling near my curb on Thursdays. "Same driver," she said, almost bored with the observation. "Always fiddling with his ring." She pinched the air near her left hand, then takes it off before he steps out. She was looking at me, but she was also watching Clara's friends behind me, the way a librarian watches a loud table. Clara's ride did not pull into the driveway. Her bag was already staged by the hall bench, luggage tag face down. She kissed my cheek in a way that was a performance for the room, then stepped into the night with Leela and Megan orbiting her. Out on the street, an SUV slid past and kept going. 15 minutes later, a rideshare car popped up on my doorbell feed, headlights doused at the corner. Clara drifted to it without looking back, as if the house were a hotel she had forgotten to rate. I stirred the sauce as if it still had a chance. It bubbled up and spat at the stovetop, a rude punctuation mark. I wiped it with a dishcloth and thought about the list of things people think they're entitled to keep private. Not everything secret is sacred. Sometimes secrecy is just a held door for a lie. She said I didn't get a say, maybe not about where she went, but a say about what lived in my house, about what entered my life, that I still owned. After the clock made a new hour, I sat at the table with the grocery card she had insisted we share for points. The banking app coughed up a high-end resort authorization, the kind that pre-approves more than just the room. A hold from a jewelry store I recognized from a street where you do not browse so much as audition. A week earlier, she had come home with a diamond pendant, claimed a brand had sent it for a shoot. The clasp was engraved with initials that weren't hers. I had let my mind file it under coincidence because the alternative meant I had work to do. Tonight, I printed the alternative in my head like a boarding pass. I took screenshots. I labeled the folder something neutral. I kept my hand steady. Silence wasn't surrender, it was oxygen. Around midnight, the typing bubble from Harper appeared. I had sent one sentence. Was it really the lake? No question mark, no accusation to argue against. The bubble breathed, then died. I imagined her phone on a nightstand, face down, the glass pulsing with group chat laughter that didn't reach her mouth. There is always one friend who is bad at pretending. I was betting on that. I turned off the kitchen lights and stood in the doorway the way some people stand in church, not speaking so they can finally hear. The street was a dark ribbon with one kink of yellow where a porch stayed late. The rideshare had come and gone. The SUV did not return. Somewhere a dog barked twice, then decided the world could wait until morning. It is not about control, I told myself, while the fridge clicked and the house settled like old lungs. It is about consent to the truth. Consent to the small, ordinary act of telling the person you live with where you will lay your head and with whom you will split the dawn. If you cannot give that, you are not in a partnership. You are only renting space in someone else's life. Before bed, I opened the Notes app and typed the letters and numbers I had seen on Clara's lock screen. Then I added the plate digits I had collected when the SUV idled 2 Thursdays in a row. I wrote Mrs. Whitmore's name under both, not as a witness to weaponize, but as a mirror for myself. People who pay attention deserve the courtesy of being believed. I left the spoon to soak and rinsed the pan clean. On the way to the bedroom, I passed the hall bench where her luggage had waited and on impulse lifted the luggage tag. I turned it over. Her handwriting, practiced and pretty, recorded a phone number I didn't recognize. No emergency contact would list a stranger if they meant you to be safe. In the quiet, I thought of Clara's sentence again, how it had strutted across my kitchen as if it paid rent. Stop acting like we're married, you don't get a say. I didn't need a say to begin, I needed a plan. The first step was simple, I would agree with her. I would agree so completely that the agreement would draw a clean border around my life. Then I would see who tried to step over it. The house breathed with me. I turned off the last light and watched the street one more minute, long enough to know the truth would not walk up to my door tonight. It was hiding, yes, but hiding things have a way of leaving footprints. And some people trail diamonds behind them without meaning to. Tomorrow I would start sweeping. The taillights were still fading when I crossed the lawn with a paper plate under foil and the kind of honesty you bring to confession. Mrs. Whitmore opened her door before the knocker finished its first polite tap. The porch light gave her hair a small halo. Her rose bushes leaned in like an audience taking front row seats. "Tea," she said. It was not a question about tea. In her kitchen, the kettle sang with the patience of old houses. I set the lemon cake on the counter and explained plainly. Clara's sentence in my kitchen, the rideshare idling at the corner, the reservation code on her lock screen that didn't belong to any lake we had ever visited. I waited for pity. She offered something better. "I've seen the car," she said, not unkindly. "Late model SUV, same driver most Thursdays, nicely dressed. He parks, removes his wedding ring with a fiddly little twist, pockets it, and checks his hair in the mirror like a teenager before a dance." She blew on her tea. Men who make plans with their fingers do not trust their mouths. "Any details?" I asked. "A garment bag," she said, looking up through steam. "Monogrammed, C.R., not Clara, not you." I wrote the letters on a napkin. I slid my phone across the table and showed her the doorbell captures from 2 separate Thursdays, my thumb pausing on the plate as the frame sharpened. She nodded once, the way a juror nods when Exhibit B stops being abstract. Back home, I aimed the desk lamp low and bought a small piece of certainty. The public records lookup site was efficient in the way a blunt instrument is efficient. I fed it the plate number. The result hummed into words, registered to a corporate fleet leased by a wealth management firm with a downtown address that also hummed. The letters C.R. acquired a profession and an office view. Clara's social stories had gone coy, no geotags, captions like borrowed song lyrics. But reflections tell on performers. In one boomerang, she lifted a flute of something expensive. In the mirrored glass door behind her, a crest flashed. a stylized wave and crown. I typed those shapes into a search bar. A resort appeared 2 hours south, full of ocean instead of pine. Lakes do not crown their waves. I booked a Saturday appointment at the shelter and typed Bruno in the notes field, though I didn't know yet that would be his name. I scheduled the locksmith with a voice that sounded like mine again. Then I turned to the house itself, hands steady, trash bags banned. This would not be demolition, this would be inventory. Boxes lined the hallway like silent jurors. I labeled them with a fat black marker until the categories made an argument of their own. Office dresses, party dresses, event heels, face kits, misc personal. I photographed each box before the lids closed, then photographed the lids after timestamp and all, not for posting, for court. If court ever asked me what order looks like. In the bathroom, I knelt by the vanity and found what vanity always hides, a velvet pouch fallen behind the drawer runners. Inside, a receipt, a jewelry store that sells apologies and pretexts in the same velvet. Below that, a custom order set for Sunday pickup. Engraving requested by C.R. The room tilted, then it did not. I read the line until the letters turned into strokes and the meaning was the only thing left standing. I put the pouch back exactly where I found it and washed my hands as if truth could be smudged. Then I opened the Notes app and built a list a lawyer wouldn't be embarrassed to see. Plate number, fleet registration, corporate lessee, resort name, doorbell timestamps, box photos, velvet pouch location, engraving notation. Under that, I typed one sentence to myself. Raise the truth, not your voice. The locksmith shook my hand like men who keep their word do. We changed the deadbolt and the cylinder. He explained the warranties in a tone that made me feel like a person with a plan instead of a man reacting to a blow. Before he left, he asked if I wanted the old hardware. I said yes and set it in a drawer with the manuals, evidence of a boundary, in case I ever needed to show that boundaries must be built, not begged for. Between errands, I refreshed Clara's stories with the detachment of a detective who trusts the camera to be careless eventually. A balcony shot arrived at dusk. The caption said nothing. The horizon said everything. Far water, not near. A reflection of a sleeve in the sliding glass, the dark suit fabric that did not belong to Leela's neon or Megan's glitter. The sleeve lifted. A hand, bare where a ring might live, touched the rail and disappeared. I did not screenshot out of jealousy. I screenshotted because memory forgives its favorites, and mine had just been fired. By late afternoon, my hallway looked like a departure gate. I labeled one last box with something kinder than it needed, keepsakes. Inside, I set what could honestly be called memory, photos with rubbed corners, a festival wristband whose ink had failed to leave her skin months ago. I taped the lid with care. Mercy has its own weight. At dusk, the porch light clicked on by itself and summoned a rehearsal. I walked to Mrs. Whitmore's again, not with cake now, but with a request. We wrote a script like carpenters build stairs, each line a riser that would take Clara somewhere honest. When the key fails, I said you step out with your watering can. I'll say I saw the dog, she offered. You say I looked happy, I said, and you mention the redecorating. No plates, no initials, no names, she recited. Let her words come first, then hang until even she can hear them. She patted my hand. I can do neighborly, she said, and I can do theater. Lucky for you, I learned both in Ohio. Back home, I printed the storage unit contract, filled it out except for the unit number, and placed it by the door beside heavy paper folders labeled house, utilities, groceries. I wasn't planning to throw them at anyone. I wanted them visible to myself, so that when the noise returned to my threshold, I had a choir of facts at my shoulder and not just an upgraded lock. I stopped by the vanity again, not to search, but to make sure nothing in me wanted to damage what I had already found. The velvet pouch was still where I returned it. I closed the drawer softly and heard my breath do the same. If she came home triumphant, she would meet a house arranged to honor her sentence. If she came home wounded, she would meet her sentence anyway, not married. No say, I could live with that, if it meant I had a say in what crossed these floorboards. I set an alarm for the shelter. I typed Bruno again and smiled at the thought that sometimes a name finds you before the dog does. I emptied the dishwasher. I swept up a lane of flour I hadn't noticed, small drifts near the baseboards like first snow. Ordinary motions sedate the urge to dramatize. The drama would arrive on its own. It always does when people confuse their wants with weather and expect everyone else to dress accordingly. Before bed, I walked the porch and looked at the street the way a stagehand studies an empty set, planning where actors will miss their marks. Tomorrow would be for pickups and papers. Sunday would be for a key in a lock and the sound it fails to make. Somewhere, 2 small letters had been welded into a promise meant to shine at a throat that had told me I did not belong to decisions. I did not plan to stop the pickup. I planned to give the promise an audience it could not charm. In the morning, I made coffee strong enough to stand up in court. Then I posted a private 2-photo album to mutuals. Before, the beige couch, bowls that held nothing. After, the leather, the pinball glow, Bruno's paws spilling over the edge like melted snow. Caption, listened carefully and agreed. No names, no accusations, no victory lap, only a declaration of jurisdiction. Comments arrived the way they do when people like you enough to forgive the out-of-focus parts. A college friend wrote, "Proud of you for choosing peace." An old coworker said that dog looks like a therapist. Someone I barely knew messaged privately that the before picture made them sadder than they expected. I did not ask them to explain. Some feelings are meant to be held like stones, kept, not displayed. Harper's direct message came without preface. When she sees the pendant plan collapse, she'll blame you. She told us you were financial dead weight. My laugh was a single sound with no mirth in it. I typed a reply that didn't escalate. Thank you for telling me. Then I printed the mortgage statements, utilities, grocery totals, card ledgers, ordinary life in black and white, announcing itself without hashtags. Dead weight had kept the lights on. At 3, Rowan texted that the jeweler had confirmed Clara rescheduled her pickup for 4. We agreed to arrive separately, 10 minutes on either side. I showered and chose the kind of shirt that makes boutique employees less nervous. Bruno watched from the bed, head cocked, eyes unjudging. I told him I'd be back soon and realized I was speaking to him the way people speak to toddlers, as if syllables can keep the world gentle. On the way out, I pressed my palm to the hall bench where her luggage had once waited and said goodbye to nothing in particular and to several things at once. The lock turned like something new. Outside smelled like hot pavement and lemons from a nearby bakery. I drove without rehearsing. The plan did not require speeches. It required presence. Before the boutique, there was one last stop, the storage facility. I signed the unit. I labeled the receipt. I photographed the keypad. Clarity works best when it is quiet and documented. Back home, the boxes waited like a measured breath. Facts were in order. The neighbor knew her lines. The doorbell had a fresh angle and the porch had learned how to be a stage without inviting an audience. If Act 1 had been the sentence, this would be the punctuation. Accuracy, not volume. Paper, not posts. Light, not fire. When the evening settled, I stood in the doorway and listened to the house answer back with the small sounds of things that belong to you. The click of the thermostat, the soft churn of the fridge, the short dog dreams against the couch. I did not rehearse the confrontation. I rehearsed being still. The only theater I wanted was next door, where a woman with roses knew how to step into a scene and let silence do the line reading. Tomorrow would handle the jewelry and the initials that thought they could rename a life. Tonight had one job: hold the boundary. Let the street be a ribbon again. Let the porch be a place where truth likes the light. Sunday night, the hour when good decisions go to bed and bad ones lace their shoes. The doorbell cam chimed, 2 polite notes that sounded like a throat clearing. On the screen, Clara's silhouette lit by the porch lamp I had put on a timer. Her key slid in, but the new deadbolt refused to negotiate. She jiggled, tried again, and let out a tight laugh that cracked into frustration. Then she knocked, called, pressed her face near the glass. My phone lit up on the table, vibrating like a trapped insect. I let it buzz, declined, let it buzz again, declined, then let it buzz a third time with her name in all caps as if volume could be typed. Text bubbles marched in staccato. Where are you? Open the door. This is crazy. I can see the lights. Her punctuation grew serrated. She typed about respect, about the silent treatment as abuse. I looked down at Bruno's ear beneath my hand and thought about how silence also means, I am done performing pain for you. I set the phone down and took a full breath that didn't need anyone's permission. The porch camera caught the moment, Mrs. Whitmore's side light blinked on. Her door creaked, soft as a book opening. She stepped out in her housecoat with a watering can that clearly held no water. "Oh, Clara, dear, is that you?" she called with her tidy Ohio theater voice. I was just checking on my night-blooming jasmine. Clara turned, urgency curdling into indignation. "My key isn't working. Is Ethan inside?" "Oh, he's home, Mrs." Whitmore said, nodding toward my window as if commenting on the moonrise. "He said he finally embraced his freedom this weekend. The dog is lovely." Clara's face bent through confusion, calculation, then contempt before settling on injured authority. She bent toward the camera and spoke to it like it was a clerk who had lost her file. "Ethan," she said carefully, "this isn't okay. You can't lock me out without warning. This is control. This is toxicity. This is weaponized silence." Inside, Bruno snored like comic timing, a small motor idling between every legal term she had borrowed from the internet. I shifted my hand and he sighed, rolling deeper into the couch. The pinball machine blinked softly, enough to keep the room from feeling like a theater. I didn't want drama. I wanted decency turned up. I typed one message because one was enough. A location, a unit number, a 4-digit code, one sentence of grace. You have 1 month. Then I blocked her and set the phone down as if returning a tool to its drawer. On the porch, she went still, and then began trying other plays. Pity, anger, nostalgia, how could you? Each attempt skimmed across the camera lens like paint on glass, the image beneath unchanged. Then an unfamiliar number rang, the kind men use when they think compartments can be separated with phone plans. I answered. The voice was smooth at the edges, frayed at the center. "This is about a misunderstanding," he began, like filing a correction at a newspaper. "I'm responsible for the hotel booking. Nothing inappropriate occurred." "What's your name?" I asked, giving him rope to declare. A pause then, Colin Rivers. CR, the initials clicked into place like a buckle. I said 5 words, calm as a door latch closing. "Tell that to your wife." Silence expanded like a room losing oxygen. He ended the call without goodbye. On the porch, Clara stopped pacing as if someone had whispered the spoiler into her ear. 30 seconds later, my phone lit with a message from Harper under her actual name, not the curated group thread label. "No preamble, no punctuation tricks. I can't carry this. He's married. She said you'd never find out." Check 2, 13 a.m. stories, her champagne glass reflection. I had them already, screenshots saved with the care of a librarian collating first editions. Proof does not shout. It waits under plastic, protected from fingerprints. Outside, Clara's performance frayed. She pressed her face to the window and saw what Mrs. Whitmore had seen. Bruno asleep on a couch that welcomed his size, a pinball machine blinking retro patience, my hand resting steady on a dog's head in a house that finally belonged to the one who paid for it. She banged once, sharp enough to wake lesser animals. Bruno opened one eye, closed it again, because loyalty does not confuse sound with danger. Her last volley at the lens was a lecture about empathy that admitted, almost by accident, a boundary. "You made a unilateral decision." Yes, I had. I had accepted her premise, not married, no say. I could live inside that logic if I was the only one required to obey it. The camera caught the exact beat when the porch mask fell. Performance ends quietly, a shoulder dropping, a hand remembering gravity, a mouth stopping mid-argument. She blinked, recalibrated, then did something devastatingly ordinary. Picked up her phone from the railing and summoned a rideshare. The headlights that arrived belonged to a hatchback, not the SUV. She didn't look back climbing in. I watched the taillights fade. Mrs. Whitmore's porch light clicked off. My hallway boxes stood where I had left them, lined up like statements that didn't need to be read aloud. Another unknown number tried once more. I let it ring until it gave up, the way hungry stories do when they realize there's no audience left. On the coffee table, the printed storage contract waited, the unit number now written in. Beside it, a neat stack of folders and the Mercy box labeled keepsakes. None of it for show, all of it for me. People think revenge is spectacle, ending with applause. Sometimes it is only a private audit, a tallied column of what you will and won't let through your quiet anymore. I typed one more message, not to Clara, but to the number that had called itself Misunderstanding. I wrote his name so the phone would remember it, then added 5 words. Your wife deserves the truth. I didn't press send, not yet. Some messages work better when delivered in a different room with a glass counter between the lie and the one who refuses to hold it. Bruno sighed and the house exhaled with him. The doorbell cam returned to its resting view, an empty porch, a clean mat, a rose bush with a fallen petal deciding to stay. The screen slept. I did not. I let the frame hold me until I believed the quiet could. Tomorrow had a jeweler in it. Tonight had only this, a man in his own home not raising his voice because the truth had finally found its own. Rowan's first message did not perform. It arrived plain, private account, one sentence that held the weight of doors opening for truth. I believe we are looking at the same thing from different sides. She attached a cropped screenshot of a credit alert with the jeweler's name, a pending pickup notation, and another of a hotel charge flagged unusual. She asked if we could meet somewhere bright, public, ordinary. Decency, not drama. Her tone was the kind of person has after they've already cried, already folded the tissues, already decided not to waste more water on the same fire. At noon, the coffee shop was a terrarium of quiet lives. She chose a table by the window where sunlight turned laminate into a chalky stage. Up close, Rowan looked like someone who had learned to carry herself without mirrors. She didn't apologize for existing. She didn't ask me to explain Clara. She set down a spiral notebook, a manila envelope, and a phone face down. This will be brief, she said. I'm not here to recruit you for revenge. I'm here for facts and for the respect people owe each other when lies start leaking. She opened the notebook. Inside, a calendar with red dots on Thursdays, annotations matching the SUV sightings, Mrs. Whitmore had logged from memory, a printout of a flight confirmation that never flew, a photocopy of a jewelry sketch, the pendant drawn neat as a monogram, 2 interlocked letters, C and C. Clara and Colin, she said, not spitting the names, just cataloging them. He told me it was for a client. He told me the engraving was conceptual. He said things men say when they want words to behave like gauze. I slid my folder across, plate lookups, fleet lease. The crest reflected in Clara's mirrored glass door, doorbell timestamps, a typed list of everything Mrs. Whitmore had observed with Midwestern clarity. I added what I hadn't done, no cloning phones, no trespass, only what Clara posted herself and what the street gave freely. Rowan marked each page with pencil check marks, tallying as if the air itself was testifying. Thank you, she said at last. I won't torch the earth. I will turn on the lights. She scrolled to a contact saved under the jeweler's name. They called at 10 to confirm pickup for this afternoon, she said. I told them I'd be nearby, that's true. Would you be willing to stand close if she comes, not to confront, to witness? Yes, I said, to witness. We built a plan, small and clean. If Clara came, Rowan would request confirmation of payer and engraving, no names raised. Facts could do their own speaking. If Colin arrived, Rowan would ask for a receipt printout. A refusal would serve as Exhibit A. When Rowan left, she thanked me like a handshake you keep even after you let go. I walked 2 blocks to a park wall, phone in hand with the weight of a tool I was finally learning to put away. Then, privately, I posted before and after photos, beige couch and empty bowls, leather and pinball glow, Bruno's paws spilling like melted snow. Caption, listened carefully and agreed. No names, no accusations, no victory lap, only a declaration of jurisdiction. Comments came fast, proud of you for choosing peace. That dog looks like a therapist. Someone I barely knew confessed the before picture hurt them more than expected. I didn't invite them to explain. Some feelings are meant to be held like stones, carried, not displayed. By mid-afternoon, Harper messaged me without preface. When she sees the pendant collapse, she'll blame you. She told us you were financial dead weight. My laugh came out flat. I replied without fire, thank you for telling me. Then I printed mortgage statements, utility bills, grocery ledgers. Paper that says what hashtags won't. Dead weight kept the lights on. At 3, Rowan texted. Clara rescheduled for 4. We agreed to arrive separately. I showered, chose a shirt meant to calm boutique staff. Bruno cocked his head, heavy-lidded eyes offering trust without conditions. I told him I'd be back, realizing I spoke to him as people do toddlers, syllables wrapping the air in kindness. On the way out, I touched the hall bench where Clara's luggage once waited. You can say goodbye to furniture. You can say goodbye to the self who let sentences slip by without consequence. The lock turned honest. Outside smelled like hot pavement and lemons. Downtown, the boutique shimmered with velvet promises. I drifted by the watch cases, pretending to read price lists while watching the door reflected in glass. Rowan arrived first, hair pulled back, tote plain. She asked for the manager. He brought the tablet and a velvet box. She leaned in, calm, decent, light on. My phone buzzed. Harper again, she's on her way with Leela. She's furious, be careful. She thinks this is yours to fix. Then the door chimed. Sunglasses first, smile like a switchblade. Clara entered, Leela trailing like backup vocals. Clara scanned, saw Rowan, and for a rare instant her face didn't change, it cracked. That's a different thing. I did not step forward. I did not raise my voice. I did exactly what Rowan asked. I witnessed. The boutique smelled of velvet and polished promises. Spotlights came down in narrow cones, baptizing everything under glass. A bell gave its neat little chime when Rowan stepped through the door, not dressed for war but for an appointment, steady shoes, a tote that had already carried too much truth. I drifted to the watch counter, pretending to read about water resistance while my eyes tracked the door in reflection. The manager appeared with professional gravity, a tablet balanced in one hand, a velvet box in the other. He set them on the counter with the care of a notary sealing a document. Rowan's voice was calm when she asked the first question. Could you confirm the order party of record? He scrolled. For MS Clara Hale, he said, paid by Mr. Colin Rivers. The box opened with a hush. Inside, a pendant delicate as a lie rehearsed too often, 2 interlocked letters, C and C, dotted with diamonds that glittered like alibis. The bell chimed again. Sunglasses, too large for the cloud cover, arrived before the smirk. Clara entered, Leela trailing like a shadow, still deciding whether to belong. Clara's eyes swept the room, saw Rowan, and for one unguarded beat her expression cracked. A rare thing to watch a mask split in real time. Wow, Clara said finally, aiming for control. So this is the part where context gets twisted. Rowan didn't turn toward her. She kept her eyes on the manager. Could you also confirm the engraving request and the approval method? The manager glanced at the tablet. Engraving, C+C, approved via digital signature by Mr. Rivers. Rowan opened her envelope and placed a hotel folio on the counter, dates lined up like dominoes. These nights match your pickup date, she said, her tone surgical. Then for the first time, she met Clara's eyes. You can keep the pendant. You'll need a different story now. Clara's mouth leapt to indignation. I never promised marriage, she said, chin lifted. Ethan knew exactly what this was. I stepped forward just enough to be seen, not enough to cast a shadow over Rowan's stance. Would you mind printing the receipt? I asked the manager, with the payer name and the engraving approval. The printer hummed like inevitability. Paper slid out, slow and confident, a truth already tired of being hidden. Clara pivoted to pity, dropping her sunglasses just low enough to deploy her practiced eyes. Ethan, this is cruel. You didn't have to embarrass me. I didn't, I said. The facts did. Rowan closed the velvet box with 2 fingers as if sealing an exhibit. I'm not here to debate definitions, she told Clara. I'm here to end the mislabeling of trips, of jewelry, of people. Clara tried nostalgia next. We had plans, she said, and for a second the word we sounded like a ledge she wanted someone to extend. Leela muttered, "We should go," the truest line she'd spoken in months. Rowan gathered her papers, thanked the staff, and walked out. The bell chimed for her exit, ordinary and final. Through the window, the SUV idled in a no-parking zone, hazard lights blinking their useless Morse code. Colin Rivers sat behind the wheel, no ring on his hand, staring at middle distance like a man rehearsing being scenery. Rowan crossed in front of his grill without hesitation. He didn't meet her eyes. I folded the receipt and slid it into a folder I had brought for exactly this moment. Paper weighs more than posts. It also weighs more than pity. Clara clung to one last frame. "You locked me out," she said, smaller than she wanted to be. "You declined the terms of home," I said. "I simply agreed." The manager slipped me a duplicate invoice stamped discreetly in blue. His nod wasn't solidarity. It was professionalism with a conscience. Clara fidgeted with the chain as if the metal might whisper new lines if warmed by her hand. For the first time, I pitied the pendant, asked to carry a story it was never built for. The bell chimed again, this time for my exit. On the sidewalk, the city sounded like itself again. Traffic, delivery trucks, a toddler tugging a balloon string. Normal life waited, patient as always, for truth to catch up. In my folder, Colin's signature sat inked and stubborn. It would not scroll away, not dim with time. Facts are stubborn things because they don't need applause. I walked toward my car, feeling the weight of paper tucked under my arm, a ledger more honest than memory. Behind me, the boutique reset its stage. Inside glass cases, new promises waited for the next buyer. Outside, I carried proof, not spectacle, not theater. Only a paper trail strong enough to end rehearsals. 2 days after the boutique, the envelope arrived with the confidence of bad theater. Cream paper, serif letterhead, words stacked like threats pretending to be sentences. Clara's counsel alleged wrongful eviction and conversion of property, as if a new deadbolt could erase the months that came before it, as if the photographs, timestamps, and storage unit contract were inventions instead of artifacts. I read the letter once at the kitchen counter, again at the dining table, and a third time standing by the window where Bruno liked to watch delivery trucks. It sounded no smarter on the third pass. I scanned the pages and sent them to my attorney with a subject line that didn't try to be witty. He replied 20 minutes later with a calendar invite and a list of documents to bring, so aligned with the folders already by my door that it felt uncanny. Mortgage in my name. No tenancy agreement. Documented notice of property location sent before I blocked her number. Screenshots of Clara's gloriously single posts, captions treating independence like a brand slogan while she slept under my roof. Receipts proving I covered meals, lights, heat, groceries. The internet forgets it is a filing cabinet. I don't. In his office, my attorney read the demand letter with the patience of a surgeon reviewing scans. He didn't roll his eyes. That restraint made me trust him more. He asked 3 questions. Was Clara ever on the title? No. Did I ever accept rent from her? No. Did I send location details for her belongings before cutting off contact? Yes, with a timestamp fit for harsh light. Good, he said, and the word carried more work than it should. We'll respond with documentation only, no opinions, no adjectives. He drafted the reply in front of me, labeling each attachment like vertebrae in a clean spine. Exhibit A, mortgage. Exhibit B, utilities. Exhibit C, grocery totals. Exhibit D, doorbell timestamps. Exhibit E, storage unit contract with code. Exhibit F, screenshots of public posts declaring herself unattached and gloriously single. He added a note about the absence of any tenancy agreement, another about the absence of threats or harassment. The tone was surgical calm. If their letter had been a trumpet, ours was a scalpel. We sent it by email and certified mail. He told me to expect either bluster or silence. Bluster makes noise. Silence makes progress. That evening, Rowan texted a single word, filed. She attached the cover page of her marital separation petition. Grounds, adultery, exhibits, the jeweler's invoice, the hotel folio. She added no commentary. Documentation has a voice even when you don't lend it one. I replied with a nod emoji, then deleted it. I typed instead, if you need a witness who saw the order screen, I'm available. She answered, thank you. If necessary, my counsel will reach out. Decency travels quickly when it doesn't have to carry fire. By nightfall, Harper called. Her voice sounded thin, exhausted, as if she had spoken for everyone too long. She told me she had given a sworn statement to Rowan's attorney because some truths rot if you keep them in your mouth. Clara had bragged in a bar that she was training Ethan to be background while she pursued upward mobility. Hearing it read back, Harper's voice cracked at the phrase. Words that slide in a bar curdle on paper. I thanked her. She apologized. I told her apologies are not retroactive keys. They don't open locked doors, but they make better ones next time. She laughed, not because it was funny, but because laughter is sometimes how lungs reject a script. The next morning, Clara's counsel responded with a shorter letter. Fewer allegeds, more considers. They asked for time to review the attachments. My attorney said that was fine. The clock isn't a gun. Then nothing. No emergency motions. No compensation demands. Just the quiet that arrives when a bluff checks its balance. In the middle of that quiet, a postcard slid into my mailbox. Watercolor of Main Street on the front, tidy awning striped cheerful. On the back, blue ink in handwriting I knew, your lawn looks strong. No signature. None needed. Mrs. Whitmore believes in plants and in performances that end on time. Bruno sprawled across the rug that night, tail thumping each time I passed. He had learned the house like a tenant who respects thresholds, waiting for permission before taking the last square foot at the end of the bed. When he dreamed, his paws twitched as if running towards something already his. Watching him was like reading a contract written in the simplest language. Loyalty given, loyalty returned. Between legal emails and dog naps, I became an archivist of my own past. I opened the photo app and deleted images with a curator's discipline. Not rage, maintenance, like cleaning a filter. The before pictures looked like plaques in a museum for a life I hadn't been seeing clearly. The after pictures glowed without asking permission. People imagine revenge as a headline, a montage, a smash of glass. Mine looked like air returning to rooms that had been crowded with borrowed weather. The hallways felt wider though the walls hadn't moved. The house exhaled at the thresholds. One evening, I took the old deadbolt from the drawer and turned it in my hand. It wasn't a villain. It had done its job until it couldn't. Boundaries, like locks, only work once someone decides they will. I set it back with the manuals. The click it made against the wood sounded oddly final, like a judge's pen finishing a sentence you can live with. On my desk, the jeweler's invoice rested beneath the attorney's reply. The stack of paper no longer felt explosive. Paper weighs more than posts. It also weighs less than fear once you've carried both. If Clara's counsel returned, I would answer with calm proof. If they didn't, the absence would speak. Either way, I had no plans to surrender the tone that carried me here. That night, pasta simmered without spitting. The sauce behaved. Bruno sighed under the table, paws twitching in dreams. My phone lay face down and did not vibrate. If the story needed noise, it would make its own. If not, I would let the quiet finish what the documents had already started. Revenge had done its work, not to humiliate but to ventilate, to give a room back its air. Dusk painted the street in that color between apology and night when Clara came up the walk alone. No sunglasses, no chorus, no bravado. She paused at the step as though expecting stage lights that no longer answered to her. A single knock, softer than memory, and then her voice, small, searching through the screen. 5 minutes. I stepped onto the porch, letting the latch close behind me so the sound spoke what my mouth didn't need to. Bruno nosed the crack, then settled at my heel, a seal pressed to wax. Clara's gaze flickered to him, then to me, then over my shoulder toward a house she no longer narrated. She tried apology first, because that's where rehearsals usually begin. I'm sorry, she said, voice tuned to violin soft, asking forgiveness for being loud. Things got complicated, people misread signals. That pendant was a mix-up, just branding, nothing more. An apology is a bridge, I said. It only works if it leads somewhere solid. I didn't ask where it led. I didn't rescue her words. I let stillness hold the shape of her shoes scraping against wood. She reached for nostalgia next. We were good, she insisted. Remember the lake, the heater that needed a jiggle? You fixed it with a butter knife, and I thought we fit. We do. The code on your lock screen didn't fit that heater, I answered, voice steady. And oceans don't jiggle like lakes. Her eyes cooled. Then came the threat disguised as leverage. I could take this further. You locked me out. That's actionable. The hotel was work. The SUV belonged to a friend. I can make this messy. You already did, I said, but not in ways law recognizes. You told me there was no marriage, that I had no say. I agreed, and I arranged my life accordingly. Your boxes are at storage until the end of the month. She tried my name in 3 tones, plea, command. Charm, none fit. A car turned the corner, not the SUV. Rowan's sedan eased to the curb, idling like punctuation that refuses to be an exclamation mark. She stepped out, closed her door gently, stood with her hands easy at her sides. No speeches, just presence. She nodded once to me, once to Clara, the kind of nod people give when they've already turned on the lights and don't need to point at the switch. Clara clocked the triangle, and suddenly the porch held too little air. You two are what? Coordinating? Her laugh was brittle, a blade trying to sound like music. No, Rowan said from the sidewalk, her voice flat as weather. We're done coordinating our lives around your fiction. The word fiction struck harder than any threat. Clara's hand went into her bag, then withdrew empty. The pendant chain flashed shyly at the zipper, small and cowardly in the light. You made this colder than it had to be, she said, chasing empathy like an old script. You could have been kinder. I answered. I gave you time, I gave you storage, I gave you quiet, but I won't give you the house again. Bruno pressed his head against my shin, anchoring me to the floorboards. She looked past me into the living room, saw the leather, the rug, the pinball glow finally tallying scores again after the loose wire had been fixed. The metaphor was blunt, but it didn't need polish. Even machines know the difference between light and meaning. Colin says this is blown out of proportion, she whispered, tasting the name like battery acid. Rowan's eyes narrowed with a hint of irony. Proportions look different when you measure with receipts. Clara's last lies stumbled out, underdressed and unconvincing. The SUV friends, the hotel workshop, the pendant branding, each floated for a breath, then collapsed in the porch air, denied oxygen and audience. Your boxes, I repeated, not as mercy, not as punishment, simply as boundary. End of the month. For the first time that evening, she fell silent. The neighborhood resumed its small music, sprinklers, bicycle chains, laugh-track echoes from a television across the street. Some victories arrive with horn sections. Mine came on ordinary air, refusing to bend. Fine, she said at last, the word unsure if it belonged to defeat or relief. Her eyes cut to Rowan again, not with hatred, but with the startled ache of realizing fences exist to protect gardens, not to trap neighbors. She turned, walked down the steps, and did not look back. At the sidewalk she paused, as if searching for a forgotten line, then let it go. The pendant stayed buried in her bag. The SUV never came. The chorus never arrived late with ad-libs. The porch stayed a small stage with its curtain drawn weeks earlier by a lock. Rowan lifted her hand, a gesture halfway between thanks and apology for having to exist in this play at all. Good evening, she said, returning to her car. No promises, no auditions for closure. Adults with truth don't need them. Inside, I dropped a coin into the pinball slot. The machine clattered alive, the score finally counting again after months of silence. Bruno rested his head on my shoe, a weight more honest than any vow. I posted nothing. I blocked no one new. I boiled water, salted it, wiped the stove when it spat. Through the open window came the sound of hose water hushing roses. Mrs. Whitmore's silhouette moved behind her screen, tending, not watching. When the timer chimed, I turned it off. Steam fogged the glass. Some victories don't blow the roof off. They set it back on. They sound like a dog breathing, a machine tallying, a house remembering the geometry of quiet. This story did not end with a shout. It ended with a home. And so this chapter closes, not with shouting, but with quiet strength. Clara walked away, her lies collapsing under the weight of evidence, while Ethan reclaimed his home, his voice, and his peace. Betrayal doesn't just destroy trust. It exposes the true character of those who choose deceit. In the end, revenge didn't come as a spectacle, but as a quiet win. Boundaries held, dignity restored, and a life rebuilt. What would you have done in Ethan's place? Would you have given her another chance? Or drawn the same hard line? Share your thoughts in the comments because your voice matters here. Thank you for watching Cheating Stories 7. If you found this story powerful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. More stories of betrayal, justice, and resilience are waiting for you here. Until next time, remember, truth always finds its way home.